So in this video we are going to make a very small application in which we will generate a random advice each time the user refreshes the page or clicks on get a new advice. But okay, the purpose of this application is not to be very proficient in HTML or CSS, but to be able to be working with the APIs, because we know a lot of time we are working with external APIs. So we are going to use an external API to generate the random generate the random advices each time the user clicks on the button. So let's get started. I'm going to change my I just have done so far is just create a index HTML file and added a basic HTML document. You can do that by saying in VS Code exclamation mark and press enter. Okay, so I will rename it as advice app API tutorial. Okay, and over here I need to link my CSS file, and over here I need to link my JavaScript, which I haven't created yet. So let's create those files: style.css and script.js. Okay, so I'm gonna go over here, say script.js, and this should be /style css. Okay, the title is changed. Let's add in the actual content inside. So I'm gonna say a container which will wrap the whole app, and inside of that I'm gonna add it in first header, which will say h1. I'm gonna name it as a random advice, and then after this I'm gonna say dot main content, which will be another div which would contain all of the random advices. And I'm gonna say p id random advice. And for now I will just add in the any of the advice, and then we will change it dynamically with whatever that comes in from the API. So I'm gonna say the most important thing is the thing most easily forgotten. Okay, and then we need a footer where we will add in our button. To we will say the button, and we will give it an ID of new advice, and we will say get new advice over here. Okay, so if we look at it, and there's a heading, there's a p tag, and this is our button. So that's all what we need for our HTML, and now we are going to move to our CSS. We will make it look much better with our CSS. So let's start by saying static margin 0, padding 0, body font family I'm gonna use open sans, then sans serif, font size 18 pixels, background color hash f5 and display to be flags to make it or why I'm giving it display of flags and justify content to be centered, because I want all of the content to be centered in the center of the screen. Okay, align items to be center, min height, so under viewable height, so it can be vertically aligned to the center as well. So all of our content is now in the center. Let's style it more. So I'm gonna say dot container width 500 pixel and height to be 300 pixels. So container would have a width and height of 500 pixels. Okay, and then I'm gonna style my each one. I'm gonna say background color RGB 156. By the way, if you are wondering that how I know these values, and I have already tried out these values, so I'm reusing them, so I know which values are these. You can also like click on this and select any of the RGB value, whatever is good for you from here. Okay, so text line would be center, and color will be white, and font size to be 26 pixels. So that is our heading 1, that is centered line. Okay, and now we have to do is work on our main content, which is this main content. Display flags, justify content to be center, align items to be center. Okay, that is also centered now. Okay, and now we can work on it more by saying dot main content and p, by saying text align to be center. Let's give it a padding of 100 pixels from all the sides, so there would be space from all the sides, and you can see the text is looking much better and there are spaces around it. Okay, and now we can say that if there is a long word, so we're gonna break for that word, break all, not break all but break word. Okay, and then we're gonna say font size to be 22 pixels to make its size a little bigger. And after that we're gonna say the last thing is the our footer. Let's design our footer. We're gonna say this background to be matched with the our header as well, so we're gonna actually copy this from here, paste over here as well, and then text align to be center, padding 5 pixels, and color to be white, and font size to be 26 pixels. So our button is now aligned to the center, and our content is matching with our header. To increase the spacing from to the header, we will say to each one by padding from top and bottom to be 5 pixels, and from left and right 0. Okay, now it is matching with our footer, and let's style the last thing, which is our button, and that is inside of the footer. We're gonna say background color to be hashtag D96034. Okay, and color to be white, and to remove its border, we will say border to be none, and to add a curve around it, we will say border radius, border none, and border radius to be 28 pixels. You see now there is a curve around it. So let's add in a spacing inside of that and also increase the text font size as well. So we will say padding from top and bottom 10 pixels, from left and right 20 pixels, text decoration to be none, which we don't even need because we are inside of a button and not inside of the a tag. Okay, so now there is a spacing inside, and now let's increase the font size, and we're gonna say margin 10 pixels from all of the from around, so we will get a spacing from around the button, and then font weight to be bold, and then font size to be 15 pixels. Hopefully now our this button is generated. Okay, on the hover button, when somebody hovers on the button, we will say button, add in some properties. So that we say background color hash f5 and color to be RGB 156 to whatever the header color was there, 29 and 29. Okay, so when I hover on it, you see the color changes. And now it's time to jump to our JavaScript, where we will work with our advice API. So we're going to use this advice API. Advice API, this website. Okay, so you can I will provide its link into the description as well. And we need to use is a random advice will be generated from this URL. Okay, so returns our random advice slip as a slip object. Okay, you see, so we're gonna use this, and we're gonna say we're gonna say const API URL is equal to this. Okay, whatever that URL we copied from there, and then we need to target our one thing is button, and one thing is this random advice, where we will display our advice. Okay, let a random advice is equal to document dot get element by id, and random advice let random advice button is equal to document dot get element by id, and for this we're gonna say new advice. Okay, and now we need to fetch data from this URL by saying fetch whatever that URL is. We're gonna pass in, and then we're gonna do is then, and then inside of that we will pass in response as a parameter, and you can name it anything, it doesn't really matter, and then which will return us a JSON, which will give us a like raw formatted data, which we need to convert into the JSON. We can do that by saying return response.json, and then we're gonna need is then whatever that data is, and let's try to first print that data, and then we will add display that data to our element. Okay, so if I control shift I and see over here, you see we got a returned back as an object, which is this, which is getting a slip. Okay, and if I expand this, it has actually two properties, one is advice and one is id. Okay, so if every time I refresh this, it gives me a random id and a random advice. So we need only the advice from this. Okay, so for that we're gonna we can get advice from only this is by saying data.sleep.advice, right? So and then we will display that to or whatever our element is. So I'm gonna say random advice dot inner html is gonna be whatever the data has a sleep, and we only need advice from that. Okay, and now if we refresh this, be a good lover, we got back returned a new advice, and we are displaying over here. If I refresh it again, we're getting this thing. Okay, so now the last thing left is like when I click on this button, we need to generate a new advice. So we can do that by saying random advice button dot add event listener. On click, it should do what? We will call a new function which is gonna say get new advice, and which is gonna be a function. I'm gonna make that function over here, get new advice over here, and then we're gonna do the same thing that we did over there. I'm gonna actually like copy paste that thing because we are doing the same thing. Beautify file. Okay, and it should work again. It should work. Always pattern black. If I click on this, so let's try to debug this. Console log over here, get new advice called. So if I click on it, we're getting that. So it looks called. Okay, get new advice is called. Okay, so there is no issue over here. So if I go over here and console log data dot sleep dot advice, if I click on this, I get this try to pay at least. If I click on it again, we get the same response. We get the same response. We get the same response. It is displaying the same thing because we are getting the same response every time. Okay, but we do not want that. I figured out if I run this in my Firefox and click on generate new advice, and what happens is it every time I click on it, it generates the same advice. Okay, I don't know what's the issue with that with the Firefox, but if I run this same thing in my Google Chrome and click on generate new advice, I get a new advice. You see, if I click on this, I get a new advice which is shown over here perfectly. And if I go to my Firefox DevTools and click on this console, everything matters but nothing matters too much. Click on this, I get the new one. But in Firefox, what happens is every time I get the same responses from that thing. Okay, which I don't know why. Thank you for watching, and be sure to subscribe the channel for more interesting videos related to the web development.